everyone. It's Cassandra Williamson, Executive Director for Transgender Diverse Veterans of America Action Group and our C3 side, which is not the Action Group. But anyway, just welcome to the show. We're live on Facebook and LinkedIn, Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, and on our website as well. So you're more than welcome to watch, drop in, say hi, whatever. If you'd like to come in and say something, as long as it's respectfully done, that's fine. Quick disclaimer. The opinions expressed here are strictly my own and, just mine. They don't belong to any other agency, group, organization, or anything like that. They're strictly my own opinions. And if you're under 18 years of age, it is time to go find something else to watch, folks. It is time to go find something else to do. If you're under 18, leave. It's that simple. Leave. This is not a place for you. Okay, so let's do a quick rundown of the news. Let's go check over on my screen for the news side of things, and we'll just do a quick rundown, quickly jump in and jump back out if we can do that easily. That's actually not the news. Let me go pick up another section of news. We'll go down through here. Lionel Messi. Okay, no, not interested. Tuberville should be expelled, impeached, tried for treason. No. 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 Just flat out no. Even though I do think that he does not represent the national security interest of the United States at all, even though he's from Alabama, and I'm down here in Alabama too. I'm in lower LA, lower Alabama, right near Tuscaloosa. As a matter of fact, in the middle part of the state, really. So, yeah, no, he shouldn't be expelled, impeached, or tried for treason. That's just a crock of bull, okay? This person is an American, no matter how much you might disagree with him, and I do too, by the way. I agree with him vehemently. I also wish he would just go back home, go back to Florida, because that's where his home's located. He has a mailing address in Alabama. Truth. Oh my gosh, who said this? Princess Free Zone. This is Gabriel Roman. This country has gone far off the rails. Okay, woke Brandy. All right. Should be expelled. Okay, no, that is not what we're going to do. That simply will not happen. That is absolutely unconstitutional to call for something like that. But he does need to lift the hold on the military officers, our senior flag and general officers in the military. He's got to lift that hold. It is a threat to national security for him to continue this asinine hold. We could have understood it for a month. We could have understood it for a month and a half maybe, but geez, come on. Since February, you're still holding it up, Senator? No. Go back home to Florida. Maybe they'll want you over there. I don't want you in Alabama. And I also don't want you on anything to do with national security, because you obviously have no freaking clue. But to be expelled, impeached, and tried for treason, no. Whoever said that, that's just a crock of bullshit. Okay, let me go check the next story out. All right, for giving us an ad. Republicans are behind grand bargain on border security in Ukraine. Well, let's go see what they have to do. It's a grand bargain for whom? Okay. Republicans demand border security is uniting a party deeply divided over aid for Ukraine. Now, why are they divided over aid for Ukraine? That's just as baffling to me. Here we are, we're supporting Israel and everything we can to help them do everything they can to protect their borders and their people against a terrorist organization called Hamas. And yet you don't think we ought to be helping Ukraine protect its borders from an aggressor nation? Russia? You've got to be freaking kidding me. Wasn't it, I was trying to put them both together before. Before they actually agreed to some money for Israel, I was trying to get them to consider both of them together. But no, they went ahead and split them apart, thinking they could have a good conversation over them and all this kind of stuff. But it turns out that there are some, strangely, this just blows me out of the water. There are some strange things in the Republican Party these days. You got people who aren't interested in national security. You got people who aren't interested in protecting the interest of our nation around the world. They're more interested in closing everything off and crawl back into a little cave and hide. It's not going to work, folks. I don't give a hoot what you think about it. It's not going to work. Periods after every one of those words. Okay. Our world is far too interconnected. I mean, if we were still just using sailing ships going around the world and connecting with people that way with no other communications means other than just, snail mail, real snail mail, like really turtle mail. And I'm not talking about, okay, yeah, I did see Mitch McConnell standing right there, but no, don't go there. The squirrel jumped off, fit in the car. But anyway, yeah, no, I mean, I thought, here I am over on the left. I'm one of those establishment liberals over there. I'm an establishment liberal and probably a little bit to the left of that because I'm a little progressive as well. It's kind of both of those things are in there. But I'm going to tell you something. I'm more of a national security hawk than all of those people ever thought about being. What the hell's up with that? Well, it's also because I've got years of time with the military. Yeah, but also grew up, wanting to protect our country, our national interest, and it is in our interest to support Ukraine. Yes, we've been giving them billions of dollars so far, and in collaboration with our European and other world allies and friends, been giving them all kinds of support, making sure they got munitions and all kinds of stuff like that. We've just been doing everything we can to help them fight off Russia, but we're fearful that if we go put people on the ground over there, that Russia will just launch tactical nukes over into the region, and we don't know that that's not a possibility, and that's something to be concerned about. But Ukraine is not in the EU or NATO, and yeah, really, when we need to start, they need to be in NATO. But here's the thing, though. What Russia is trying to do is reestablish the old Soviet era where they had satellite states around the outside as like border, rather than having a moat around a castle with sharks in the water going around the castle. Well, what they had was, actual states, actual sovereign, supposedly, states that bordered Russia. Those sovereign states, those satellite states, you could think of those as the moat, because they were so fearful that people would get across the moat and make it into Russia. But the world is so far way beyond all that kind of crap. But yet you still got people who want to build the darn sandbox and then build an exterior wall to protect it. It's just, oh my gosh, it's really comical, but it's at the same time sad. It's a sad commentary on the state of human thinking and ability to see things from a bigger picture. However, that said, I do hope they get this thing straightened out. President Biden has requested $61 billion in military aid and economic aid for the Eastern European ally. Has spent the last 20 months fending off an invasion by Russia. Okay. The aid has strong bipartisan support. More than $100 billion has already sailed through Congress since the conflict began, but this time Republicans want policy changes at the southern border in exchange for their vote. Well, you wanted no riders attached to the Israeli funding. What's different now? What is different now? Okay, well, got to do some negotiating, apparently, folks. Come on, let's go negotiate, get this done, and do it civilly and stop all this bullcrap that Washington had to call Hamilton and Jefferson out for, attacking each other in the local press. Okay. All right. Son of Holocaust survivor and author Elie Wiesel says teachers must assign night in schools. I think she's referring to Crystal Nacht, maybe, to give them an idea of what that's like. Don't know. Not going to read that. 15s you should never say to a gun owner, anyone public defender. Okay. Was Hamas elected by a majority of Palestinians in Gaza? Well, they've been in power since, 2007 or 5 or 7, I think, 6 or 7. I don't know if it was a majority then, but they've had no votes since then. No elections since then. Doesn't matter. White Christian nationalists have a troubling appetite for violence, and we're in for a rough ride, folks. And this was from an author I'd mentioned earlier today at noon, talking about The PRRI, it's a research institute. They do the national, let me just go take a look at it. So I won't screw it all up. This is an article by Alex Henderson on AlterNet, but the other one this morning that I checked out at noon, that was from Salon, with the Salon magazine with Chauncey DeVega. But Robert P. Jones, founder of Public Religion Research Institute, PRRI, and so he's been discussing American Values Survey. It's the latest thing, American Values Survey, and he goes into some details about this. But the one thing that's prominent over on the right side is that they are willing now, including the Christians and the Protestant Christians, as well as evangelical Christians, they're willing to take that step toward violence now, more so than at any time in the past. Well, since this survey's been going on for 14 years or so. So anyway, that is particularly troubling for sure, as they say down in the next section down here. Pretty stark, troubling and worrisome. We're in for a pretty rough ride in this country over the next 12 months, and I think so too. Because now you've got a whole organization that's out to erase and delete Americans they don't like. And they shroud all of their work behind this euphemistic thing about reducing the size of the administrative state that appeals to some people who think the government is too big, which is fine. I get it. I understand that. But that's not really what they're after. That's the secondary. They put that out front and try to tell you about that. That's what they want to do. However, how do they want to get there? Well, first thing they've got to do is put in Schedule F, which is what President Trump had empowered. He signed an executive order just before he left office. President Biden rescinded it as soon as he got in. But Schedule F makes federal employees at will employees. So basically what that means is, hey, we don't have to have a reason to fire you. And we can replace you with Cousin Joe Bob over in the corner over there, the one without the teeth. We can put him in there because, he's a conservative, flag-waving conservative. Might have bars and stars on it, but hey, look, he's a flag-waving conservative over there. We'll put Joe Bob in. Replace that expert over here with somebody who actually knows what they're talking about, especially around climate or, I don't know, science in general, or diplomacy, or, whatever. But no, Cousin Joe Bob, Snaggletooth Joe Bob over there is going to come right in and just, he can do your job well. Heritage trained him and vetted him, and he can do it. And he knows there are only two genders, by the way. So yeah, absolutely. That's the kind of, and he takes his family of 10 to the church every Sunday. And sometimes Monday and Tuesday and Wednesday. But yeah, Cousin Joe Bob, he's going to replace the expert over here with Schedule F. Just says, okay, you can now fire anybody you want without cause. And that's what, if a conservative takes over the White House and stands up there and says, so help me God, on January the 20th of 2025, guess what's going to happen? President conservative is going to pick Cousin Joe Bob and all of his relatives and go in there and replace everybody in the whole of government. But they have one objective. They're not in there to shrink the size of that thing right off the bat. No, that is not the goal, folks. That is not the goal. That's what the surrounding, that's what it looks like. That's the glittery thing that drags in a lot of people. That's the thing that a lot of people seem to like, is that idea of reducing the size of the administrative state and the executive branch of the government and putting it all back under the president's thumb. President conservative, he'll stick his thumb out there and go click. All right, we're going to cut it all. We'll put Cousin Joe Bob and Cousin Betty Lou over there in that pile, and they're all going in and fixing that thing. You know what I mean? They're going to go in there and clean house, folks, but it's not to reduce the size, at least not ostensibly. Wait. That's too big of a word for Cousin Joe Bob. At least not, Lord, I can't even think of a good word to replace ostensibly with. But at least, well, you know what I mean, right? Come on. Interesting. But no, Anyway, that's the plan, is to send all these people in there. And like I said before, they know there are only two genders, period. I mean, they've known that. And they'll tell you that gender and sex are the same darn thing every freaking time, because that's the way it was back yonder, up in that holler, up in there. Yeah, yeah. When I met your cousin, you know, and I can do this because I am from there. Don't think I can do it honestly, folks. I am from there, from Hickville, USA. Okay. I'll have to tell you a story. Are you ready? Ready for this one? All right. So I know I digress, but that's fine. I kind of take the long way around to come to go tell everybody what I'm talking about. Let me get out of this thing here where I can actually see your faces and see who's over here with me right now. So I'm going to tell you a story. All right. So look, I live down here right near Tuscaloosa, Alabama. I was in Tuscaloosa. I'm just right across the river, the Black Warrior River, over in Northport now. But I can tell you that the Tuscaloosa VA is my VA center, and they're one of the best in the country for LGBT veterans healthcare, and veterans, period. But LGBT veterans especially. I consider them like the gold standard of care across the, and how can I say that? I'm not just saying that because I don't know or I haven't been to the others to know. I have been to most of the others. Literally. I have been to probably 85% of all the major VA medical facilities in the lower 48 states, all of the lower 48 states, folks. I missed a few, I know, but still about 85% of them I actually have been to in person. Okay. And I do have to say this, and I'm chasing another little squirrel here, and I was able to do that because, one, I was the VA liaison for one of the oldest transgender veteran organizations in the country, the oldest actually, that's focused solely on transgender people, and that would be the Transgender American Veterans Association, TAVA. I was with them up until the first part of this year. And with them and doing all this traveling and stuff that I did for all of our veterans to go check them out, it was TAVA and I out there doing all their work. And I'm so thankful that they're around. They've been around since 2003, 2003. And they're the oldest veteran service organization dedicated solely to transgender veterans. And yeah, this is not a flash in the pan or something that just happened. Transgender veterans have been around for a long freaking time. I have a friend in California who actually transitioned in like 1973, physically, completely, every way, socially, transitioned in 1973, I think it was, 74, somewhere right around there, after spending a career in the Navy and retiring from the Navy. And then went into the Army because the Army wanted her IT skills, computer tech skills. So she goes into the Army in California. There were no problems at all. Nobody had an issue. She did her job, and everybody knew that she had transitioned. It was public knowledge. She made sure of it. She didn't deny it or hide it. And then when the Pentagon found out about it later on in the 70s, later 70s, they tried to force her out. Well, they did force her out eventually. But what they ended up doing was they couldn't give her a dishonorable discharge. They had to give her an honorable one because she had been forthright with them. They knew all along. She had no problems with anyone and did her job exceptionally well. And I salute Joanne for that. Ta-da-ta-da. I've met her in person in California at her home, and she's just a phenomenally intelligent and caring and kind person. And I just want to do a big shout out. And that's when I was on the road with TAVA, doing the work for TAVA, okay? And that's where all the photos I have from around the country, they actually come from that work. So I have to give credit to TAVA for enabling me to do that. They paid for some of it. I paid for most, but they paid for some of it. They paid for some of that. And then, like I said, I paid for the most. And even lost my car along the way in a crash. One person crash, though, one vehicle crash. And no damage to me, just totaled my car. I'll have to show you a picture of that little car sometime. But anyway, back to the original story. I started to tell you this. See, like I say, I go around and around in different ways and bring all these stories back together somehow because I actually remember where I've been with all of these things. Okay, so let's go reverse the trail on this squirrel trail I've taken. I'm going back to saying about I've been there. I know what it, you know, I know how to talk like, act like, be like the people from Hickville, USA. You know, that's where I was. That's where I grew up. Okay. So I come by it honestly, but you know, I know you can still hear the Southern stuff in my voice, but you'll notice that it is not like Appalachian voice or, you know, like Razorback voice out in Arkansas, you know, or down in Louisiana. It's none of that kind of stuff. I mean, it's a cosmopolitan Southern Alabama sound. I don't know what to call it, but I will tell you this. So the VA sent me out. So obviously I have physically transitioned completely in every way, socially, physically, everything, completely transitioned from having the exterior male body that I was acclimated to for 50 years or so of my life. Yeah, I mean, I went through male puberty. I have XY genes. I even have some Levi genes. But anyway, no matter what, you know, I've been there, done that. I know that. I went through male puberty to get here. But that was genetic sex. My gender, however, is entirely different. It's not that at all, period. It's female, across the board, solid. Every test you take, everything I do, that's where it comes from. And for the longest time, I was trying to get my voice to even align with that. That's the last big thing I needed to work on was this voice. And people pointed out to me all the time. And I go, look, you know, I was born with it, but that's not entirely accurate. I was actually not born with it. Testosterone produced it. This is a testosterone built body when I went through puberty. Okay, I got it. I understand that. I love the genetics. I love the science. I love looking into it. By no means will I deny those kind of things. That's a very macro scale level of understanding, though, just so you know. Let me see if my camera is still up here because that would dropped out like crazy. Anyway, so it's still a macro scale level. Let me get a drink because it didn't kind of dry here. Of genetic analysis. Macro as meaning that we know more now. It's not nearly as black and white binary as we think, as some think it is. It's no, we've known for a long time that genes express in a far less binary way than any of you would ever think, but they do. They actually operate more like a slider switch that's got catches on each of the end. It goes male, female, but everything in between is possible. There are no specific numbers of genders. The gender is determined by how you want it to be, and that's what I've done. Mine, I mean, brain, chemistry, all of it, it's all there. It's exactly what it is. It's female gender. So I've had all of that stuff taken care of. The only thing left is the voice. So the VA here sent me out in town to the University of Alabama to the audiology department. And I go through the training. I went through it for several months. It might have been 6 months or something like that, maybe less. But somewhere around there. We worked for a while. I was able to get the voice to cut out that low, raspy bottom edge. You know, I was able to get that to go away. However, toward the end of this, they decided we weren't making much progress after a little while. You know, they figured out that, well, we can actually accelerate this if we do a comparison of your voice with other voices in the country so that we can isolate the dialect that is your voice. And they didn't know my history or anything. Never been told anything about it. So we did. We recorded sample of voice, you know, you saying certain words, test words, things like this that, you know, could give them a clue as to where your voice originated in the country. Well, I did. A couple of weeks later, I get a call. I went back out to see them, and they said, well, you know, it sounds like we did all this analysis stuff, and it sounds like, you know, you have a voice that's from Eastern Kentucky. And I go, oh, my God. Oh, my God. I said, yeah, that's true. That's where I grew up. I spent 17 years of my life, early childhood life and into the teens in Eastern Kentucky, Southern West Virginia. And then they said the big thing that really got me. They said, and it would be really easy for us to just train your voice to sound like a girl from Eastern Kentucky. And I go, look, I love my family back there. I do. I love my sisters. I love my brother back there, my mom back there, aunts, her cousins. Now, I love all of those people back there, but I sure as hell don't want to sound like that. So from that point on, I just decided that, I'm fine with this. I'm fine. It causes some confusion on other people's part, but it doesn't confuse me at all. I mean, it kind of, other people have to really quickly adapt to figure out what they're seeing versus what they're hearing. So I think it's a lot of fun. But anyway, so how did we ever get over onto that? Yeah, well, not quite sure. Oh, I was talking about the Christian nationalists wanting to sweep in there and take over the whole of the U.S. government. If a conservative wins the presidency and takes over on January the 20th of 2025 at noon Eastern and says, "So help me God," well, Joe Bob and Bobby Sue and Billy Bob and whoever else is over there on the cousin side, they're all coming out of the woodwork because, Schedule F will kick out all those people in that administrative state. And Joe Bob and Billy Sue and all of them, they've been trained by Heritage and vetted and tested. They'll pass that security clearance. And they know they've got this down the road. Now they want to go in and do this and do that and do this. But you know what's on that list? You want to remove every word that has to do with gender and sexual orientation. You got to take out all those words about diversity, equity, inclusion in your department. Whatever it is you're doing, go in there and clean house. Take those words out. We don't want any references to those people. Anybody like that. We don't want any reference to identifying those minority populations in the country. So we're going to eliminate diversity, equity, inclusion, reproductive rights, reproductive health, abortion, gender identity, and gender everything. And the word gender, period. Because they just don't like the word gender. I guess it's offensive to them to think that we now know that gender and sex are not the same. They're related, not the same. But, they're still stuck back there in probably the 1940s. But I think some of them want to go back to the 1850s. But that's where Heritage wants to take things. Let's go back. Go back to the good old days, right? Right? You know what else was going on in the 50s? 1850s up through about 1890 or so, life expectancy was around 48. Let's go back there. Let's ignore the science, folks. Let's go back to that period of time. Right, right. Exactly. No. But that's where we're at this point. We've got these people who want to do that. And they get Billy Bob and Bobby Sue in there, and they're going to take all those words out. And then if they see any other word they don't like, I mean, you know how it is right now out here with these book bans and things taking place around the country. All it takes is one person to see something that they just don't like. It just rubs them the wrong way. Just one person. They see a picture in a book somewhere and they go, "Oh no, we can't have that kind of thing. That person's got look at that. They're carrying I don't know, a duster and a feather and a boa. And oh no, wonder where that could go. We've got to get rid of that stuff. Let's get rid of that one too." But that's all. When the book bans are doing that, that's all it takes is one person to propose this to that school board that addresses maybe 60, 70,000 students in their area if they're there, the larger ones. But yet one person has that ability to do that. Well, that's what they want to do in the federal government, to remove these words. And if they find a word that they don't like that isn't in their list, that's not listed for them, then they can call it out too, just get rid of it because, it hurts their feelings or something. I don't know. It's, and you think I'm making this up. Oh, well, you are in for one hell of a shock there, young person and old person or whomever you might be. You are in for one heck of a shock. They have put $22 million into making this thing happen, and they're going to be training Billy Bob and Bobby Sue and Sue Ann and whatever else out there to go in there and just take over the whole administrative state and then remove every reference to things that they don't like. Remove it. If some of these people will be working over in the National Institute of Health, there are grants over there that get put out here that study the social impact of health. the social determinants of health. That's the phrase I was looking for all minorities. Every minority population in this country has some social determinants of health, the quality of life, their mental health and their physical health. There are social determinants of health related to the fact that they are a minority. But when that person goes in there and Billy Bob takes off and goes and says, I'm as good a doctor as you and I know all the research stuff just like you do, well, I'm going to clear out those words because we don't like them anymore, so you can't research any of those topics because, they don't exist anyway, right? Y'all are just faking it. Now, this is all fake research you're doing because these people aren't real. They don't exist in the country. And it says that in the Plan and Heritage Foundation's Project 2025, folks, to remove the funding for any of those projects that have to do with sexual orientation, gender identity, or reproductive health or gender or anything like that they just don't happen to like. Because if you can't study it, it's not real, right? If you're forced to not be able to look at it and think of it rationally and to find out what actually is causing that group of people to experience less health outcomes than the other larger minority populations, it's probably not real, right? Yeah, no. But that's what they want to do. They want to go in there and strip out everything like that. And believe me, if they get a chance, they will do it. They surely will, folks. They surely will. That's Project 2025 in a nutshell. So I've been reading a little bit more of it, and it's really dry. But let me just go and highlight a few things for you. I did go look at some more of it today, and I'll show you what I did with it. Let me go back and present again from over here. We're just going to look at it again one more time. And this is it here. Go to here. Now, I'm down to this section. That's chapter 3 in there. But let me go back up to the top here for a second. I'll show you something. Oh, okay, so now look, this is where I actually ended. This is where I actually ended in a lot of these discussions that I've had about this, okay? And I actually end up here where it says that, if you're transgender, and since you're transgender and pornography is connected together, being transgender, which is absolutely bullshit to start out with, they've always connected it with the minorities that they don't like, and including racial minorities in the past. This is a constant refrain. Oh, if we don't like those people, what we can do is rile up our base into thinking that they're all just, they're into pornography and all this kind of stuff. They do it all the time. They do it all the time. They did it with racial stuff when there was talk of integration with the blacks and stuff like that. And they talked about it all the time, folks. And then it went to the gays, the gay people. The Lavender Scare, which kicked out of about 20,000 people out of the federal government. Was it 20,000? Might have been 2,000. I don't know. It's about 20,000 probably under the Lavender Scare in the late 40s, early 50s. Because, those people are gay. They can be compromised. They're already compromised mentally, right? They're into all this other crap and everything. They got to be. Why else would you do that, right? That's what they're saying. But anyway, they say you're not entitled to First Amendment protections up here in this section, right in there. Okay? And then they go on down here talking about people should be imprisoned if they're producing it or talking about it or distributing it or anything like that. Educators were listed as registered sex offenders, and the companies that promote and facilitate this kind of stuff should be shuttered. There's no ambiguity in that statement. And then you go right on down through here. The next, and the noxious tenets of critical race theory and gender ideology should be excised from curricula in every public school in the country. How stupid can you get? Anyway, geez. Let's go on down. Then the next one I put a circle around it and highlighted it and left a comment. Finally, down here, this isn't just promise number one, folks. Finally, conservatives should gratefully, I think it's gleefully is probably more like it. Finally, conservatives should gleefully celebrate the greatest pro-family win in a generation, overturning of Roe v. Wade. A decision that for 5 decades made a mockery of our Constitution and facilitated the deaths of tens of millions of unborn children. But the Dobbs decision is just the beginning. Let me highlight that part right there. The Dobbs decision is just the beginning. Okay, I'm going to change the color of that one. Highlight. Let me pick a red one. Yep. You see, we knew that. How many of us are actually claiming that immediately afterward when Roe v. Wade was overturned and everybody said, oh, they're not stopping there. And all we heard over on the other side of the aisle, over there on the conservative and the Republican side was, no, that was a ruling that was made. Now we're set on that one. We're fine with that now. That's good. It's not going to do anything else. Lie, 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 lie. We knew that. There are people out there at the time those comments were being made. There were people right then, right there, who are already chomping at the bit to go after any other minority they don't like, any other American that they don't like. Well, yeah, the Dobbs decision is just the beginning, folks. Conservatives in the states and in Washington, including the next conservative administration, should push as hard as possible to protect the unborn in every jurisdiction in America. Now, in particular, the next conservative president should work with Congress to enact the most robust protections for the unborn that Congress will support. And here I thought Republicans were small government. Didn't want government making decisions like that for anybody. You know, wanted to keep the government out of the bedroom. But it turns out that's not true. That was a lie. Yeah. Promise number 2, dismantle the administrative state and return self-governance to the American people. And that is a load of crock right there. Even if you disable or dismantle the administrative state, Congress can't manage the whole darn thing, even with 500 of them. They can't manage the entire administrative state and all the requirements of the state that they themselves have created with their rules and regulations and laws. Okay, they don't have the time. They'd have to create their own internal groups just to monitor the external ones that they think they're managing. And then we're in the same darn friggin' position. It doesn't really matter. I mean, they can't do it. But what they want to do is dismantle it only after they clean it up a little bit and get rid of stuff out of all the rules and regulations, policies they don't like. You know, that's just the way they think. But, you know, what they really want to do, even after they do that, they want to return this Unitarian executive, the executive Unitarian theory or something like that, Unitarian executive theory. Yeah, returning the power of the executive back to the president. In other words, he will have final say, he or they. That next conservative president, that president, they want to make sure they have power over that whole administrative state. Fire, hire at will, change people out, put in Joe Bob and Billy Nut Job and to whoever over there in the raccoon skin hat, you know, with that powder musket. Jeez. Oh my God. Yeah. So that's what they want to do. Put those people in there, but they want to be able to go, hey, we don't like what you're doing right there. You're not loyal enough to the president. Talk about some loyalty testing, means testing for loyalty. No more such thing as, and I'm an expert in this field. I can stay right here and do this because, I know what I'm talking about. I've been studying this for a long time. I've been working in this field for, a few years at least. But yet, no, we don't want you in there because, you aren't sufficiently loyal to the next president. So, bye. Right. And that's not going to put self-governance back to the American people. That is such a blatantly crass statement. It's just hard to explain it any other way because, no, they're not. They're putting it back in the hands of a single unitary executive, the president, if they get to clean house the way they want to. And so much for separation of church and state, and so much for separation of church and everybody else's, all their family. From the entire genealogy of one family gets moved into running the government. We got my cousins from over there. They're the fourth and fifth ones in the holler, but really, they're not really my cousins. They're more like brothers and sisters because mom and dad were really well. Anyway, I'm not the family tree is a totem pole essentially, but whatever. But we're going to put all these people over there and put them in power in the government. And the thing is, the people they're talking about aren't you and I. Return self-governance to the American people. They don't think that we are Americans, folks, or at least not American enough, because we're not included. We don't have that right of self-governance, just they do. Really, that's exactly what that means. That means that there are some Americans that they don't think are American enough to be able to be self-governed because, they don't have First Amendment protections. That can promise number one. All right. Oh my gosh, yes, let me just write on down through here. So I highlighted and circled another section. Congress passes intentionally vague laws that delegate decision-making over a given issue to a federal agency. That agency's bureaucrats, not just unelected, but seemingly unfireable, then leap at the chance to fill the vacuum created by Congress's preening cowardice. Wow. That's just, I find that to be just, oh, okay. Let me see what we're looking at here next. The federal government is growing larger and less constitutionally accountable even to the president every year. And that's likely a true statement. However, the things that our government is responsible for doing that Congress has delegated for them to do by law and not policies or whatever, require these kind of things. And the American people put all that stuff in place because, they sent their elected representatives to Congress, but we're not really self-governing Americans. Okay, well, anyway, the combination elected, no, I'm not going to read all that. Wait, yeah, well, this is this one, the first one attacks the EPA. This one goes after the EPA and is quietly strangling domestic energy production through difficult to understand rulemaking processes. Well, I'm sorry, Joe can't figure that one out. Joe Bob, and that's Joe Bob. Joe Bob can't figure that one out, folks, because he's uneducated. That one, okay, yeah. Okay, bureaucrats at the Department of Homeland Security. Let me go right down here. Bureaucrats at the Department of Homeland Security, following the lead of a feckless administration, order border and immigration enforcement agencies to help migrants criminally enter our country with impunity. And that's a load of horseshit. Those borders have been open for ever. Forever. Yes, they have. There was no wall there before. It's just become an issue now. Actually, no, that's wrong too. There was concerns about the border back in the 30s, 40s, 1890s. People have been xenophobic forever. They always, if there's a problem down on the southern part of the state, there was the Latinos coming across the border or coming across that imaginary line there and coming in and taking all the jobs. But, whenever there are no Latinos doing those jobs, do any of the able-bodied young American men go jump into them? Nope, they don't. Okay. Department of Education. That's another one they just really can't stand. Inject racist, anti-American, ahistorical propaganda in America's classrooms. Ahistorical. Well, so what does ahistorical mean? Somebody? Anybody? Ahistorical. It's not like historical or not historical, but it's ahistorical. Well, they're acknowledging that there's parts of history. What they're using that word to define is, they're saying that there's some history they just disagree with, and they don't think anybody should be taught that part of the history because, we're the victors and we get to decide what the history should be and what the history books should say. That's what they're saying. They want to make sure that our history books reflect a history that glorifies their views. that reinforces their views. It's not, ahistorical is not a lack of history. It's just a blindness to the other side, other perspectives in history. Okay, the bureaucrats at the Department of Justice force school districts to undermine girls' sports and parental rights to satisfy transgender extremists. Oh my God, I'm an extremist. Oh my God. Jeez, what are we going to do with that one? Jeez, I've been called all kinds of things, and I repeat a lot of them. I've been, transgender extremist. I'm obviously I guess I'm Brother Day on the transgender empire. Brother Day, transgender empire. Yeah, just look. I got clone here and that clone there, and we're just going to take over for another 10,000 years, folks. Oh my God. Woke bureaucrats at the Pentagon force troops to attend training seminars about white privilege, as they should. And we're not talking about privilege as in, I got more money than you, but privilege as in, you don't have to jump through as many hoops as everybody else does to get there, okay? You're running down this track, you've got hurdles in front of you, and yeah, it's tough and it can be challenging because that's what you have always known, is that you have to jump over that hurdle every 15 feet or 20 feet out there. You got to jump over it. Jump over the next one. But the minority that's racing beside you has had to jump over 3 for every one of your 1. That's privilege. Systemic privilege at that. Because the systems that they have to jump through and the hoops they've got to go through are far more complicated than the ones that you have to go through over every 20 feet or so. Yeah, you got some to go through, but this is not that conversation about privilege in terms of, I've got money, I don't have to live in a mobile home in Eastern Kentucky, up in that hollow. Yeah, I know you don't have any financial privilege. I get it, I understand. I know what that's like, folks. Yeah, I know what that's like. However, if you're still white and you're living up in there, you have the privilege as somebody who is in a minority, who lives right beside you in the same conditions, same situation. Your struggles are bad, are terrible, absolutely. And you think you have no privilege. But the other family that is a minority, they've got to go through 10 times more stuff just to get the same thing that you get, and living in the same community, in the same situation, the same conditions. It's far harder because there are systemic barriers. And if you don't think they're there, you're just plainly blind. We've been trying to clean those things out, been trying to erase them, all that. There's things that are the obstacles in the way to make sure that everybody's on the same, at least has the same opportunities. Yeah, and everybody's going to say, all we got to do is just work and work hard and keep working and keep doing and keep applying yourself to all that. But if your family's only having to work 2 jobs, and the other, if you're having to work 2 jobs to take care of your family, but the other one is having to work 3 just to keep up with what you have, there's a problem. There's a problem. 2 of them, really. Anyway, I'll let you figure that out. Bureaucrats at the State Department infuse U.S. foreign policy or U.S. foreign aid programs with woke extremism about intersectionality and abortion. Look, intersectionality is real. There's nothing wrong with the word intersectionality, but it's awfully offensive to some of these people and just gets them all up in a wad about it. I don't know. It makes, I don't know what's, they've got all these crocodile tears and really thin skin and can't figure it out and all that kind of crap. But intersectionality, all that means, you know what that means? Is that there are people out there who have, if a person is just white, even white people have intersectionality, folks. There are white people who are poor. That's an intersectionality. There are white people who are wealthy. That's an intersectionality. There's an intersectionality between those 2 identities. Being white is one identity. Having money is another identity. Living in a gated community, that's another identity. That's an intersectional connection. You have an intersectionality right there, okay? And let's say that you also live, you live in a gated community in the hills of Eastern Kentucky. Well, you've got definitely a lot of privilege right there, but you also have intersectionality there too, because, you do live in Eastern Kentucky, but you have a choice to get out of there. Whereas people who are white in the same position, same location geographically as you, they have a different set of intersectional things between the intersection of whiteness and finances. Those are intersectional identities, folks. It gets worse though when you start stepping down and looking at, look, if a black person has got wealth living in that gated community, they've got intersectional identities that influence their lives still, that the same person who is white living in that gated community doesn't have to experience. There's some intersectionality that they have to deal with that's different. And it's cumulative, the impact of that. So every person has some intersectionality with them. And you can't just say that it's all just minorities. It's all people, all. But intersectionality is it's present in everything. I have intersectionality being, a white woman in the South who was acclimated into the world with, genetic sex of XY, went through male puberty that way. There's got a certain set of privilege expectations that come with that. If you don't think that's real, well, you should try it on the other side of this fence because you begin to see a few things that you never thought you would ever see or understand or didn't even know existed. But having been on both sides of that fence, yeah, there's a huge difference, folks. I get mansplained a lot, which is really comical, but that's fine. But still, those show some of the disparities between the differences in our peoples and understanding of how things work in the world. Intersectionality is real. I don't care if you want to eliminate the word or not, it's still real. And it's not the boogeyman in the corner it's not going to, when you say intersectionality, it's automatically not going to bring in everything else with it. Well, unless you are able to think clearly, and then it might. But anyway, I digress. Let's go down to the next one. Conservative president must move swiftly to do away with these vast abuses of presidential power and remove the career and political bureaucrats who fuel it. Talk about chaos. Talk about chaos. I mean, it wouldn't take them, I'm going to guess it wouldn't take them 5 years. If we did this, they went in there and cleared out all of those bureaucrats who have been there for a long time, career people who know their areas far better than anybody else, who know that field far better than anyone else. And let's say you just get rid of them. You go in there and clean house, and you throw Sammy Joe into the corner and say, this is your office, you're running this department. It wouldn't take them, 5 years would be pushing it, because they would very quickly start turning to some experts for some help. Because, they should, at least, if they got a little bit of cognitive awareness, self-awareness. Because if they've got that kind of self-awareness, they'll know, look, I don't really know what's going on here. They're talking about, this is the nuclear physics department over here and nuclear medicine department at National Institute of Health. And I'm just a plumber from Podunk, West Virginia. But I don't like that word right there. We got to get rid of it, because that thing is going to mess us up. If intersectionality comes out of all that, oh my gosh, you're going to talk about having Mr. Conservative president up there is going to be real pissed if I let that word slide through here. So we got to remove that one. But I want us all to go back to this too, and I want us to go back to this particular thing, because this is the way we actually. We don't want all of this kind of stuff where you actually have to learn that sex and gender aren't the same. We don't want that. Just like, it's the same thing. You got all these scientists out there, and they're telling us that the atomic world is made up of all these quarks and things, and it's atomic cloud, little clouds of probability where all the electrons might go and all that kind of thing. No, we want to do away with that. We want to go all the way back there to that billiard ball model in the 1800s, because that one's easier to grasp and it's all together. You don't have to worry about, electrons, protons, neutrons, quarks, or anything like that, or any of that. Just go back to the billiard ball model and we can just neglect all the history after that, because it's too hard for us to grasp that sex and gender are not the same anymore. So we're just going to take the whole world back there to the billiard ball model of understanding. And I've got an image for that one somewhere. If I can find it, give me a second. I'm going to see if I can locate this thing. Download. Do I have the billiard ball model pulled up here somewhere? Is that it? It's not it. Anyway, I'm not going to go searching down through here for that, because I've got this image that shows the quantum mechanical side over there of atomic world, of the nuclear world, and then it's got the billiard ball model over there. It's the progression of knowledge, and with the progression of knowledge, we finally come to understand that sex and gender are not the same. They're related. It's just like we understand that the billiard ball model, that was just this mushy, everything was all inside there. There was nothing. We couldn't understand anything about it. That was just an atom. That was like a piece of iron, as small as you could get. But that's an iron atom. There's nothing more there. We don't need to worry about all those other things that we learn later about, like protons, neutrons, electrons, or orbital stuff and shells. No, I mean, that's just too hard for us to grasp. So we're going to neglect all of that and go back there. So yeah, let's just get rid of all the colliders and we have, and all the understanding we have about nuclear medicine, and Sammy Bo over there is going to get rid of it for us and save us all that trouble. We don't have to worry about it anymore. We'll just go right back to the sticks, and then he can take his little smartphone and shove it up his ass. With that, I am calling it a day, folks. Anyway, I've had fun. Have you? I'm going to end the stream now. You all have a great evening. I'll see you tomorrow at noon Eastern time, and tomorrow afternoon at 6 as well. And we'll do some more comedy skits like this, and hopefully we'll get some people more